Birds of paradise. When people in Europe first saw their plumes, they believed that the birds themselves lived in heaven, perpetually on the wing, feeding on dew. The people of New Guinea, who know the living birds, make even greater claims. They say the birds are sacred, creatures on which a man should model his life, and the source of many blessings that he can draw from them by magic. The glittering feathers of the many different species of birds of paradise are essential wearing in the huge displays of wealth and prestige that loom so large in the life of tribal New Guinea. One of the most valued plumes of all are the twin pennants that sprout from the head of the King of Saxony's bird. Only a skilled hunter knows where in the forest this particular species can be found and how to catch it. And few are more skilled than Onka, one of the big men of the Melpa people in the Western Highlands.
On va cantre il medico ma mon kuna pre muito pa non pa te veterano on va cantre mil gira con broca li ngata on va ruci inte on va winte kre ne poco mo come a me te vedi molto ne ne tempo te te porro mi voce ndir ngata am ndiro li prende mo ngata a me te ya a ma cantre ko li te wace ai te me to te be ya ndo pe te wace wi mo te te bon pe ai te pochi toro me o e me le te cái thứ ba ngày thì mình bùi à, giờ cũng mà mong vào nó phải trong đó thế này, tí la cái.
The centre of New Guinea remained unknown to outsiders until only 50 years ago. When at last Australian explorers found their way across these mountains, they discovered beyond them wide and heavily populated upland valleys. Administrators and missionaries soon followed them, each preaching his own message. And within a generation, the people were transformed. But even so, the old beliefs have not entirely vanished. The Huli people in the Southern Highlands believe that one of their most powerful spirits, Ibatiri, lives in their rivers. When people impersonate him in ritual, they give him a twinned double character. For Ibatiri is a double-dealing spirit with two very different sides to him. He brings water to the riverbed, but he can also bring it to a man's guts and give him dysentery. His river brings life to the gardens, but also death by drowning. So this two-faced character is represented not by a single dancer, but by two. Each carries in hair two white feathers. The woman they circle is not a woman at all, but a man in woman's clothes. And the bows and arrows they threaten her with are not real weapons, but harmless dummies. In this complicated symbolism, the twin white feathers of the headdress are essential. They come from one very special bird of paradise that has just these two streaming out from its tail. So this bird becomes identified with Ibatiri. It was the last of the birds of paradise to be discovered by Western science. They called it the ribbon-tailed bird of paradise, but to the Huli, it still remains Ibatiri's bird. Ibatiri requires more than dance as tribute. he must be given offerings of pig meat. If such tributes are neglected, he will not keep the river clean. Then disease may overwhelm the community and the crops fail. Ibatiri, though very important, is only one of the many spirits of the natural world on whom the Huli depend. They reside not only in rivers, but in many of the dramatic features of the land. The rituals to placate them are now practiced only very rarely and always in private. But even though the ceremonials have largely vanished, the beliefs that lay behind them still remain powerful in people's minds. This beautiful valley in northern Huli land was one of the last parts of their territory to be contacted by outsiders. And the people of the main settlement, Yaluba, still follow tradition much as they always did. Men and women live very separate lives. They eat separately, they live in separate houses. A man's role traditionally is that of a protector and a warrior. He prepared for it when, as a young boy, he was sent away from the main settlement to live for several years with other boys in the forest and was initiated into the Haroli cult. This cult encouraged not only fighting ability, but self-beautification. And this the devotees achieved primarily by wearing the most elaborate wigs. The cult itself is now virtually dead, but wig wearing and wig making is still an important source of pride for Huli men. The role of women in Huli society remains much as it has always been. They produce much of the food for the community as well as rear the children. If a child is to flourish, the help of the spirits must be invoked with spells a few days after its birth. When it's 4 days old if it's a girl, 8 days if it's a boy, its parents must take it down to the river, carrying it, as they always do, in the net bag that women use for all their loads. They go to a part of the river where the most powerful of the Huli spirits slept on one of his important journeys. As they go, they chant spells invoking the animal spirits, urging them to give the child a share of their strength and aggression. The parents chew leaves from the particular species of tree that grew at the place where the founder spirit first came out of the ground, and sprigs of it have to be thrown into the river. If these things are not done, the child would assuredly die. Many powerful spirits, however, live in the high forest, and to invoke their aid for his child, a man must go and visit them there. On the ridges above Yaluba live bowerbirds, close relatives of the birds of paradise. The male McGregor's bowerbird builds a special stage on which he displays to encourage females to visit it and mate with him. Every day he tends it, bringing new moss and twigs. Every day he dances here. But it's the bowerbird's industry that the Huli most admire. This is the quality they most covet for their children. twigs from the maypole in the center of the bowerbirds arena can carry the bird's qualities if they're treated in the right way. They must be burnt together with special leaves. Then taro is cooked in their flames. Taro, an ancient traditional food bequeathed to the Huli by their founding ancestors, is the symbol of strength. With the essence that comes from the bowerbird's twigs, taro, when scraped over the babe, will make it grow both strong and industrious. For the Huli, even more than most New Guinea people, the actual utterance of words is a crucial ingredient for the success of any piece of magic. As the taro is scraped clean of ash, more spells must be chanted. Papua New Guinea is an immense island, over 1,000 miles long. Much of it is covered by thick tropical forest, and in these jungles, birds of paradise have evolved into an extraordinary variety of species. In all of them, the male displays to attract as many females as he can, and each species has developed its own variation of splendor with which to do so. The magnificent bird of paradise displays in an arena on the ground. As in all birds of paradise, the female is a drab creature. In order that his glories shall be seen to their best effect, the male strips the surrounding trees of their leaves so that a shaft of sunshine cuts through the forest and sparkles on the sheen of his plumes. And the dancing ground itself he keeps meticulously clean, tidying it up every day by removing any leaves that may have fallen on it. The six-wired bird of paradise, or parotia. The male has 6 quills sprouting from his head, each ending in a pennant, though as the display season progresses, he may lose 1 or 2 of them. The Princess Stephanie bird trails 2 long, glossy tail feathers and has a bib of rippling green iridescence. The female, again, is barely recognizable as belonging to the same species as her gaudy mate. The most famous birds, the kind whose feathers so impressed Europeans, sprout cascades of gauzy plumes from beneath their wings. When the male displays, he throws them up about his back. There are half a dozen species in this group, each with a slightly different color in its plumes. This one, with deep red plumes, is Count Raji's bird. The males display in groups, not on the ground, but high up in the trees on special branches that may have served the birds as dancing perches for generations. When a female is finally entitled onto the dancing perch, the male changes his display into one which will lead directly to mating. The Raji bird lives in the forest all around Yaluba. The people know it well and admire it for its beauty. So what better spirit than that of the Count Raji's bird of paradise for giving beauty to a child? To make the spell, clay, carrying the strength and fertility of the earth, is moistened by water and spit, regularly rubbed over a young child's body. The mother, as she does so, invokes the name of the Raji bird. The Raji bird is not only spectacularly beautiful, it's also loud-voiced and eloquent. Those qualities are also worth having, and they too can be transferred by the spell to the child. The plumes of the Raji bird are often worn in a headdress, but they're so valuable that usually only men are wealthy enough to own them, and boys must make do with flowers. The forest contains bad spirits as well as good ones. They are the Dharma, and when a hunter goes into the forest in search of food, he must protect himself from them and make sure that they don't spoil his hunting. Degondo, a holy man from Yaluba, has no doubt that the supernatural protection that can come from spells is essential for success. He makes special magic with the water that comes from Ivatiri to make sure that his dog's nostrils are specially clean and sensitive, so that it can smell the game better. He blows in his words to give them greater force. Even more than possums, Degondo wants a superb bird of paradise, for he badly needs its triangular turquoise breast shield for his wig. Before he enters the huge forest, he must get rid of any evil spirits that may have followed him from the village. They might easily spoil his hunt or even cause him to have an accident. So he builds a symbolic gate to block their path. While he's in the forest, Degondo must only talk in a special forest language. It has a completely different vocabulary from that spoken back in the settlement. That way the Dharma won't understand what he's doing or planning, so they won't be able to thwart him. The breast shield of the superb bird is essential for a good hoolie wig. It covers the forehead, the most significant part of a man's body. It's there that the very essence of his personality is focused. The wig cult, the Haroli, required that young men remained in seclusion in the forest for several years, performing rituals to increase their fertility and potency. As a man passed through each stage, so he was entitled to wear a different design of wig. This is Landa, one of the leaders of the Haroli cult until it died out about 10 years ago. Even now, the precise design and decoration has an importance that is meticulously observed, as is the accompanying ritual. The 6 plumes of the Parotia bird of paradise must go behind the superb bird's feathers if they're to be set off properly. The Parotia has its own particular symbolism for the hoolie. Just as the male bird comes out of the gloom of the forest to clean up his display ground and dance in his glory, so young boys, during the years they were away from their community, being instructed in the rites of the wig cult, would come back to the villages at regular intervals to dance and display their new wigs. Like the magnificent bird, the Parotia keeps his stage meticulously tidy. So every element in the wig has its own function, its own importance, its own significance. Every element carries some essence of the bird and transfers it to the wearer. The wig cult encouraged its members to strive after personal beauty as well as aggressiveness. Although the religious side has now largely died away under the influence of the missions, and physical aggression is officially disapproved of, the ideal of physical beauty still remains strong in the minds of hoolie men. The most important of all the wig parades is the Mali. Before dawn, on the edge of the forest and well away from the settlement, the men assemble secretly in small groups. Before decorating the wigs, spells are chanted over the heads of the dancers to make quite sure that they will eventually look at their very best. May the men be as splendid and beautiful as birds of paradise, the man chants, and may many people come to the dancing ground just as birds flock to a tree that is in fruit. Only men may be present at these preparations, and they talk in whispers, so that no one shall know just where they are. For to make the biggest sensation, their eruption onto the ceremonial ground should come as a surprise. Now the preparation of the wigs themselves may begin. The basis of them are string nets filled with burrs like pom-poms. These are then covered with animal fur and human hair and decorated with flowers and feathers. The feathers may come from many different birds, parrots and lorikeets, eagles and cockatoos, as well as birds of paradise. But it's the paradise plumes that are by far the most important. Next, faces must be painted. In the old days, the colours came from clays, white, blue and yellow. Red ochre was produced from an iron-rich clay wrapped in leaves and baked in a fire. For black, they used soot. All were made into cosmetics by mixing them with pig fat. Today, however, commercial powder paints are brought in from trade stores, and the colourings are more varied and more vivid than ever before. As each group moves towards the dancing ground, they stop every 100 yards or so and dance in an attempt to draw the attention of the spectators who've gathered there away from the groups who've already arrived. The dancers' bodies are covered with oil, sometimes that comes from plants, sometimes a special mineral oil that oozes from the ground in one sacred spot. The hand drum is an essential part of the display. Its voice must be loud and with a particular tone. And to make sure that it has these qualities, men, when they make their drums, once again seek aid through ritual of birds of paradise. This time, the magic comes from the bluebird of paradise, which has a particularly loud and altogether extreme call. The main work of hollowing the drum is done with fire. So now the drum will have a strong and penetrating voice bequeathed to it through its burnt plumes by the bluebird of paradise. Only a very few people still practice the magic that was once an essential accompaniment to many of the crucial events of life. And even they only do so in secret for fear of being ridiculed. For the people in the villages today are mostly Christian. Christian ritual has displaced much of the traditional ceremony, but the old beliefs live on, sometimes in a kind of spiritual marriage with the new religion, sometimes in conflict.
Body blow thrice.
The Christian Church has been active in New Guinea for a long time. Missionaries first arrived over a century ago, building their simple churches in settlements around the coast. Their governments, British, German and Queensland, soon afterwards sent ships to lay claim to various parts of the island. Planters and traders soon followed them. But coconut palms, which provide copra and were the island's most obvious wealth, are slow growing. So many planters began to exploit a different crop, birds of paradise plumes. Some hired local men and armed them with shotguns. Others bought the feathers directly from the local hunters. Small children were recruited to snare those birds that danced on the ground, the six-wired parotia, the magnificent and the superb. Zoos and lovers of caged birds also began to covet live birds, the most dazzling occupants that any aviary could have. And European collectors began to travel far into the mountains in search of them. But the primary stimulus for hunting birds of paradise was human vanity. Not of New Guinea inspectors, the Lay brothers and Jim Taylor, a government officer, discovered a huge, heavily populated valley in the very heart of the island. In their explorations of it, they used aircraft. They walked in first and cleared a simple landing strip. Then the single-engine plane boldly flew in with supplies for them. The effect on the people, who had never seen outsiders of any kind before, was electrifying. Jim Taylor recalls that first arrival at Mount Hagen in the Wagi Valley.
The people at the Middle Wagi had seen the aircraft in the air, and on our approach to them, they didn't know us. They called for spears and shields, which was a sign of hostility. As we drew near them, they looked close at us, and I put my arms in an extended fashion to resemble an aircraft, a small aircraft, and made a humming noise. And then pointed to the sky. The people then put their arms down, shook hands, and said, "We know," something that meant, apparently, "We know you, we saw you in the air."
Onka was a boy of 16 when Jim Taylor came into the Wagi. Now he is a big man at the Melba. Their tribal economy is based on pigs, and rearing them is one of the main responsibilities of a man's wife. Onka has many pigs and many wives. Since the 1930s, the people have found another source of wealth, coffee, originally introduced by the white newcomers. Onka, like many of the big men in the valley, has several hundred trees. But even with all these changes, the fundamental basis of the economy remains to Onka what it has always been: pigs and the bird of paradise plumes. So now a headdress, to make an effect, has to be bigger and more spectacular than ever before. In this part of the Highlands, women dance as well as men. Men give them decorations to wear to honour their role as producers of pigs. But the changes have brought problems. Pacification and modern medicine have created a population explosion and a consequent need for more food. Clearing the forest for plantations has been made easier by the introduction of steel axes instead of stone ones. And bows and arrows have been replaced by shotguns. The fertile floor of the Wagi Valley has been drained and planted. Now it's covered with neatly tended, uniform rows of alien crops that provide neither food nor shelter for birds of paradise. The steep walls of the valley still retain here and there small patches of forest. These are the last refuges of the birds that once flew throughout the valley. The plumes that Onka and his people, the Melpa, most treasure are those of the bluebird of paradise. Only they, the people say, can make the centerpiece of a headdress really glow. The bluebird's courtship display, in which it flaunts its plumes with acrobatic grace, is the most spectacular of all. The calls the male makes as he hangs upside down in his ecstasy must surely be among the most extraordinary noises to come from the throat of a bird. The bluebird, always rare, has now virtually disappeared from the Wagi Valley. Over the mountains to the north of the Wagi, however, lies another valley, the Jimmy. Comparatively few people live here. It's still heavily forested, and it's still full of birds. Some of them, like the golden-plumed lesser bird of paradise, don't occur in the Wagi at all. So it's here that many of the Wagi men, such as Onka, come to get new plumes. And with the newfound wealth, the going price for a bluebird plume is up to $50. The Jimmy people believe that the trees in their forest contain kum, a witchcraft substance that causes sickness. The calls of the lesser bird drive it away. So lest the kum should accumulate, they don't hunt the birds heavily, and then only at the height of the display season.
What's a mocha natural compro pension? Gioro may what a mocha at one can never compatible. I bet it, but I'm a regular at Latin. Kay, what a Giacomo Monro make it. What a ginatism. And if we to be kept in Antium, Puluchi kept with Natism. Peluit, Mogamoga. Gira compro writing up a pocket. Tahab of a foreign pente. After night ample, pump my magic for eating to go to one pente, not 80 more mechanics in the bucket. Ellingakan, on the country, Kyoga question, but on pump and taking me to go to a management.
Onka comes to the Jimmy not to hunt himself, but to trade for plumes with one of the local men to whom the birds, by mutually agreed tradition, rightfully belong.
But I don't go to getting I don't go to Nagatro Murga, Muna Maria Business, all of anything to what I have mortgage on. But I went to eat the good compared with the Baba mortgaging and what I want to the Bama Patagal Bondagaya. Maybe you can't write it up with the video of money. Now, whenever only Penny. Now, I'll get married when I'm in the number. I don't know what to do. Now, I'm out of a book only. What? Don't no room can't talk. I don't Maya, I'll divide a road with me. What? Well, I wrote a grand more of that. I wanted it in the road. Yeah, I'm putting a room. Put it out on that. I don't go in the tea room. Oh, go in the tea room. Raga the room. Yeah. My. I'm a good thing I live in the now, by Morgan. I am a convincing in the Bunda. I'm a ragmi. Only more than the Garden now. I have a Mokona and my Bakung by Tana. But Iraga, Tilopunchi, Tilopunchi of Kurag in the corner. I couldn't take a name and take more. I'm an arm and the green armament. Oh, we're going to the Monabram, the element in the morning, and I'm going to have with him anymore. I'm a contract of Kurganta, Imo Kurat with Bunto.
진짜 오래가면 걸어보기 때문에 아마 집을 가 먹는 가겠지.
And Onka obtains the precious plume whose value is so much more than decoration. It's his bond with the bird in whose life he sees his own reflected. When he dances, it is, in a sense, to celebrate this timeless bond. Onka and the Melpa grow coffee now for export. Modern roads run through their valley and down to the coast and the outside world. Their children go to government schools. Many attend Christian churches. But the essence of their lives continues to be expressed in their passion for the plumes, their delight and pride in displaying them. And that, it seems, will never change.
Bây giờ cũng phương à, cha cho mình là cũng chỉ có cái trường phương là chả phải mà cái trường mà anh rất là máu kẹt cho mình dùng quỳ cái import rồi mình dùng máu kẹt cho mình dùng cũng phương à, cũng phương ya áp cũng đuổi vào cái trong cũng phương cái import rồi mình, và cha nên cũng chỉ cái mình dùng cái áp cha mà mình là máu kẹt mình cha cho mình ya nên akan kalau le ugai napa anh nhầm kan, mình cha phải bàn được mình ya cũng muốn nên mình cái bagi tu nào cái cũng phải cha phải mình áp muốn nên mình lewa ya mình napa anh nhầm bagi tu cái Money meant to have a moken, key run more on the bunch up money. I'm a maneka. Don't mock it in Yama quickly on the man who got Maninga, Kirara Ram begin to come more. What in Pitney at Maninga, Kumoni Mel, or Mintavia, Dragon on Monopon, and who don't go village of Pitney anymore, Kirun more on the bunch of money up around to keep. Kirara on the bunch of Moki on the camp of King to Taga more which managing it. Utagama Kapam and Jam, I just Pamana, Kukuman can pour on the Poco, which America may be given to run over Orangam, Moki in Toronto come to Quan, Orangam, what the monument on the Pamana may am ragment, legitimate upon the Chi Walker and Arampa. And Mandan.
Stay with ABC for a preview of next week's programme in Edge of Survival, and that's followed shortly thereafter by tonight's episode of Fame is the Spur.